Daniel Maanzo is
Yes.
a member of parliament for Makueni constituency. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Good to have you on the hot seat. We've been waiting to have you here for a while.
Hot seat.
Yes.
Am I likely to be fried?
No. More like boiled.
Well,
That would be better.
So you're giving Mheshimiwa no option.
Mafuta imepanda bei. Hatuna mafuta ya kufry.
Lakini boil.
Lakini boil. Maji tu. Hiyo iko. Asante sana for joining us, Mheshimiwa.
yes.
So Parliament resumes, and in fact, it's just what we've had in the news. Both houses of Parliament are resuming today with some heavy stuff on the agenda. Because number one, this is an election year. So Parliament will obviously have to break early so that it can allow you to go and campaign. What does the calendar indicate?
Well, we'll be breaking early June, adjourning early June to await the new House, the 13th Parliament in August after elections. And therefore, this means by that time, the budget of the country has to be ready. You know, the budget is usually read around the middle of the year. And it's so one of the things we must do now is to make sure the budget is ready. It's been prepared. The supplementary budgets have been passed. And then that will make it very easy for the government to move on. Even when Parliament's life will have come to an end, then government activities will carry on up to the next time budget will be made. So the budget of the new year, which will be now 2022-2023, has to be completed by May.
And so that's a lot of work that has to be done. In fact, we even saw Ukur Yatani, the Cabinet Secretary, announcing the date that he will be reading the budget. That's sometime next month in April. So the budget policy statement was presented before Parliament. The relevant committee on budget and appropriations looked through it. Have they presented the report, and has the BPS already been adopted by the House?
Not yet. This is what we'll be doing immediately. They first did a division of revenue bill. That's what we first did, which deals with the counties, so that we make sure that the monies for the counties is secure, because devolution is very important now in the country. And you know what is mandated to the counties as to carry on. Unfortunately, very little has been going on there by the claim that monies are not leaving national governments for the counties. So that's, we've already done that bit, and I'm sure to be proceeding to Senate so that they can also do their bit. And then now the main budgetary activity commences immediately. It's the main thing we are doing between now and when Parliament closes. So it's got to go through all the debates. Yes.
And then there's also the Elections Amendment Bill.
Yes.
That is also coming up for debate again before the same House. It has several proposals that have been put forth by the IEBC. That is also something that you're going to discuss. Do you have enough time to do all these things before June?
There are very many bills which are not completed, some coming from Senate, and others having originated from the National Assembly. I think what is priority now is budget, and we'll see what else the House Business Committee will prioritize, or will make look at what is most urgent. For example, the election thing is important, but the question is, will it get the necessary numbers to be able to go through? There's a likelihood that it will be again also, to show who has the power, who has the might.
It will be like the political parties.
It will be like the political parties' bill, and that you saw how much time we wasted on that. So the more consensus is built, the better. If you build consensus, you reduce the debate. If it's something good for the country, I believe the two sides of the House should be able to agree, and then that election law is passed. If it is contentious, then most probably we're going to waste a week or two in it. And again, it must go to Senate, because it is a law which is affecting the election of county assembly members, the governor, and the senator. So it must again also go to Senate, and that takes quite a little bit of time.
Well, sure, it's interesting that you say that. You say that if it's looked at as something that is important for the country, then both sides of the House then would probably take it into consideration. Does that happen often? That it is what is for the benefit of the country that is taken into consideration when these debates are raging in Parliament?
There are times bills come to the House and they are not contentious. Bills are originated by the leader of majority. So if the opposition is already satisfied with that particular law, the debate is shorter, and even the people interested to contribute are even fewer, because the matter is straightforward and the country needs it urgently. For example, now we have something to do. I had presented a bill on, the compensation of people who get snake bites. In Kenya, because that had been removed, and for the last 4 or 5 years, anybody killed by a snake in Kenya has not been compensated, but one killed by an elephant or buffalo can be compensated. So when I presented that, it didn't have a lot of Kenyans, because I don't think any Maasai person is ever killed by a snake. They're able to give themselves first aid very fast.
They have snakes.
Yeah, they have a lot of snakes. They encounter them more than any other person. And there's a way they do first aid with the traditional medicine. Unfortunately, most hospitals have no proper medication. And when they no longer compensate, KWS and the county governments have a very big role to play. So that did not fight a lot of resistance. And I believe it's going to go through before the end of the House, because any law which is not passed now will die automatically. It's dead. You have to begin it afresh in the new Parliament. So there are matters like that, something to do with the fertilizer, something to do with agriculture. You will not find it contentious, but something to do with election. It's likely to be very, very contentious. Because you will find that the amendment, in a way, is going to disadvantage.
Why is it so cantankerous? Why?
You saw the political parties bill. What was contentious and what was sometimes it's politics being played, because you want to show how many numbers do I have, who is strong, who is powerful, and then you waste a lot of time on that. Finally, when the political parties bill passed, the first person to embrace it was the person who opposed it. It was very easy now for them to form coalitions. It was very easy for Honorable Musalia to find it easy to now go and link up with UDA. UDA had already taken a position. If you want to join us, kill your party, dissolve your party, come as an individual. And then now, again, you see, the future of this country is coalitions. There's no single political party which can win elections without a coalition. But you can imagine we wasted 2 weeks of legislative time arguing.
Is it really a waste of time, or what we are calling this contentious issue is the political language of negotiation?
Well, whatever has politics in it will become contentious. We used to live.
Again, I'm asking the question.
Yes.
Is it really contentious, or is it the political language of negotiation?
It should be political language of negotiation.
Yes.
It's a way of weighing each other's strength, politicizing. We were leaving the house at 2 a.m. in the morning. I mean, have you been voting for something you would have done in half a minute?
Are you saying that this negotiation should have happened elsewhere, or there should have been a better way of negotiating, rather than using this platform, public time, to negotiate?
Well, sometimes political parties agree on certain things, and not only the practice here. Even in the U.S., where you have 2 major parties, there are matters on the floor of the House. They form a coalition. The leaders of majority of each side, or leader of majority and leader of minority, have a certain committee, and they are able to agree on a certain issue, and they are able to move without wasting a lot of time. Like when it came to issue of sending financial help to Ukraine with the bombings and all that. They took very little time. But there are matters also, even them, they will behave like us. They will not agree at all, and they will fight it over again and vote, and it goes to Senate, and it's the same thing. So I think it's just political interest.
It's the nature of the game.
It's the nature of the game.
Mheshimiwa, you have been in the 11th and now the 12th Parliament.
Yes.
And before that, you still had played some role in politics. You were the first registered chairman of Wiper when it was ODMK.
Yes.
You are a politician. You have some political blood in you. If you look at the 11th and the 12th Parliament, people have really talked about the 12th Parliament and saying, come on. Or high expectations of this Parliament, high expectations of the quality of debate, high expectations of the efficiency of work that has come out of this Parliament. But then we don't see that. People are actually saying, we rate this Parliament very poorly. We're comparing to other parliaments and also comparing to the expectations that those had on this Parliament. Do you think this is a justified sentiment?
Yes, it is, and that's why I don't want to be a member of Parliament anymore.
You're done?
Yes. I'm not going to be in the National Assembly anymore. I'm now vying for the seat of Senate in Makueni, actually competing with my professor, Kivuza Kibwana, who has been the governor. And the reason is there's nothing more value I will be able to add in the 13th Parliament. Business in the National Assembly is very difficult, bearing the number of members available and the time available. You know, you sit for 2.5 hours in the afternoon. You are, let's say, averagely 300 people come to the house. So for you to be able to talk or even to contribute and make a difference, you may take months before you get to the mic. So it, you end up not being very useful other than during the committee presentations. On the floor of the House, it becomes like a talk show of the House leadership. Before you are through with the House leadership, it's already 6 o'clock. You have 1 hour to go, and the matter is put off to another day. So, you know, we are too many in the House.
Why did you go into politics in the first place?
It was by accident.
Please, accommodate us. Explain to us
Yes,
the
yes.
accident.
You know. First of all, I come from a rural village, and my father was a pastor. So most probably I would have become a clergyman like him. Then I went to Standard Boys Center, where Dr. Griffin didn't like two people. He didn't like politicians, and he didn't like lawyers. So when I told him, most people trained by Dr. Griffin became pilots, surgeons, doctors,
And finance people.
and that's what he wanted me to do. And I went to see him. He used to do career talks. And when I went to ask him whether I could go to read law in the university, he was very disappointed. He thought I should become a doctor and contribute into helping humanity. And then finally he told me, when you go to law school, then I want you to become a judge. and the last, I'm very restless. I can't sit in one place for 4 hours. So becoming a judge will really be a challenge. So when I went for my pupillage, I was very lucky to be attached to Feroz Noroji advocate. And he happened to be working with Orengo, Honorable Orengo, and Governor Kiraitu Murungi on the petition of Mwai Kibaki against Moi. So that was my first taste of politics. And what Orengo will do after we leave court, we will do a little bit of politics. So I picked it from Honorable James Orengo, GAB. You know, he has another name there called Angry. So I began picking it, and I began, you know, soon I was facing tear gas, and we would run away from Uhuru Park after court sessions. And then I also learned from Orengo, when he's in the courtroom, he's fully a lawyer, and you will never know any politics of him in the courts. And when he gets out there, he's a totally different human being. And out of this admiration of James Orengo, I ended up being part of that system. And when we were registering, when we went orange and banana, the Mutula Kilonzo Senior, who had really beaten us up in court on that Moi petition, and went to celebrate with Moi in State House when we had no cup of tea to take. And that was my first humiliation in court, as a pupil and as a new lawyer, because the matter dragged on for many years. And I had now gotten to know Mutula Kilonzo out of being the opposites. I used to try to be in his chamber, but it was very difficult to reach him. I would be told to call him over lunch hour. And then I go to the booth that, down there in near his office in Finance House. And there's a long queue and I have many coins. And therefore, when I ring over lunch hour and he's just getting to talk to me, the coins are over and there's a long queue. And then the other people want to call to Western Kenya, of course. People are waiting in different booths in Kenya. So I'll be chased away. I never met Mutula till Orengo assisted me and Feroz Noroji, and I'm forever grateful to them. So when we were now registering the orange, Mutula Kilonzo Senior was unable to. So they sent somebody inconspicuous, who was me. And when I went to the AG's chambers, I went there inconspicuously. Because if Orengo had come there, his purpose would be known. If Mutula Kilonzo Senior had come there, they would know why he's there. So I went and worked with the small people, the small clerks, managed to pay for the party, and it went all the way to Amos Wako. So when it came to time for the Honorable Amos Wako to make a decision, he became very smart. He told Orengo and Mutula, sorry, I have a boss called Mother Karua. So I can't make a decision on this matter. You've got to go and look for my minister. So when I went to Mother Karua, Mata got to Mother Karua, she made some consultations, and things were very hot in the country. And they actually allowed me to be the chairman of the Orange and got the certificate. But somebody told me to photocopy it at the Attorney General's office, and I was lucky to get a colored photocopy. So the photocopy I made looked very much like the original, and that's why I presented to Raila Odinga and remained with the original. But remember then at that particular time, the person showing was Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. He was higher even than Mwai Kibaki, President Mwai Kibaki in the ratings. And
he was the highest in the country.
He was the highest in the country. But all of a sudden, the Honorable Raila Odinga, through Medivo, actually it's Medivo who forced it, and the Honorable Raila Odinga announced his candidature. But both of them were in the orange. Obviously, nature will dictate that I will favor the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. Naturally. And even if I was Luo, for example, because Kenya is Kenya
is what it is.
Kenya is
yes,
a natural country.
and our divergence is our strength.
Mm-hmm.
If I was Kikuyu, I would have done the same. If I was Luo, I would have done the same. So I was taken to court by TJ Kajwang and Atiende Omolo. And we went before Justice Aluoch. You can see how Kenyan justice system works. The file appears to the right place. Yes. And that particular day, the idea was, first of all, to declare who is the chairman, and secondly, to stop possible nomination of Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, which was going on in Kasarani. And, we had a very tough argument in court that morning. My lawyer was Mutula Kilonzo Jr., and Justice Aluoch was very smart. She just took the Honorable Atiende Omolo through his own papers. And the search from the AG's office showed I was a chairman. So she ended the case quickly. Say, don't bring politics in my chamber. Go sort it out there. You know the answer. How do you want me to make a political decision? You know, those days were very sensitive in that we did not have the constitution we have today. A president or a vice president or that order was a serious matter. So very soon, we were out of the chamber, and that afternoon we nominated Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka to run with ODM Kenya. So Raila Odinga was left looking for a party, but he was very lucky because there was another hidden orange by the party in power, then PNU, with Imanyara, and he got the other share of orange. It had actually been stolen before, and I was trying to recover it. And Imanyara now gave it to the Honorable Raila Odinga. And that's how our relationship started. We have come a long way with the Honorable Raila Odinga. Later on, Kalonzo Musyoka 2012 supported him. And 2017 he supported him. So we have had a long relationship.
And 2022.
And now 2022.
He has said
Rosafi, and we have all agreed we give a chance to the Honorable Raila Odinga for a 5th attempt. I think going by the example in Congo, the president of Congo assisted the opposition leader to become the next president. And I think that's what we are trying to do in Kenya. We have a president and a term. And again also, there's no vice president in this country who has ever ascended to power directly. Moi Kibaki took many years there in the wilderness.
And Moi Kenyatta died.
Moi and Kenyatta, Moi was lucky. And then President Moi was lucky. And you can see Honorable Kalonzo never made it directly. Raila Odinga has been trying for many years. So I believe even DP Ruto will have to do his turn in the wilderness for another 10 years.
I saw that's where you were going. Dan Maanzo is the MP for Makueni constituency. He says he has served 2 terms in Parliament and then in the National Assembly. He does not want to go back to the National Assembly. We want to look at those 2 terms of your experience in those 2 terms in the National Assembly. The work done in the National Assembly, the work done by the National Assembly, efficiency of the National Assembly as we've seen it, the 11th and the 12th National Assembly, the politics that have either moved the country forward or delayed the progress of the country. This is what we're discussing today, the business of the 12th Parliament. 8:30, we're live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and on YouTube and Facebook. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room.
And it continues right here on SpiceFM, KTN Home, and online with Daniel Maanzo, the MP for Makueni constituency, serving his 2nd term in Parliament. He says, don't want to go back to the National Assembly. You'd rather go back to going to the Senate, where you stand a chance of contributing something. You feel that in these last 2 terms in the National Assembly, your contribution has not been as much as you'd have wanted. One, because you've said too many members, 347 members of the National Assembly, and limited time that you sit and you contribute in open chamber and open debate. But then there are those who have said that this Parliament, the way it's been designed, is that a lot of the work is done in the committees. Is that not so?
That's why a lot of members do a lot of work in the committees. The country may never see that contribution, or that contribution may not be felt. I was one of the lucky ones. I'll be the first one to key at 2:30. Always I go to Parliament very early, because if you don't make it by 2:35, or when the House is starting, if you are not there much earlier, you have no chance of contributing. You just sit and listen the whole afternoon. And I've been very lucky all the time. I'm able to contribute almost every day, but I'm not able to go to do it the way you feel satisfied, like the way it used to be in the house when it was smaller. And again, the way we have structured our house under the new constitution. A lot of the work, once it's done in the committees, you'll find it is the House leadership, either leader of a committee or leader of majority or leader of minority, who have priorities in contribution. And by the time they are through, the day is over. So a lot of members, their effect has not been felt by their supporters back at home. Some people also sit there and never get the chance. You hear a complaint, Mr. Speaker, I've been sitting here and I've not managed to contribute, and it is now going to 7 p.m. in the evening. And you find that case is genuine, and even the Speaker is sympathetic. I must say also the Speaker has worked very hard. And Honorable Justin Muturi, first is a lawyer. Secondly, he was in the judiciary. So he is very good at balancing in his decisions. A lot of times motions are brought and the Speaker has to retreat to rule whether this particular law is properly before the House, whether it is constitutional or unconstitutional, or issues. And he quickly, that presentation may take an hour and take a lot of time. It was unexpected, and a sharp member notices something is not right with something which we've already started doing, raises issues, people contribute on it, and the Speaker has to go and rule like a judge and come back with an answer so that we may proceed on the matter. And he has been very effective. He has done very well if you see his communications. All that has been done very well. And things which take a lot of time and priority, like the budget, they have been contributed for very well. You know, the contribution for the budget policy, you know, helps members bring in the issues Kenyans are talking about. Of course, there are petitions which are taken to the committees. They are supposed to be completed within a certain period of time. There are questions. At least there was an improvement on questions, and it's not as good as those days when a minister used to be in the House. And hence, the proposal of half cabinet in the House, half cabinet away from the House. We had a cabinet which is scared of Parliament. So if they don't want to face Parliament, they are not. The ones who have done well, the cabinet secretaries who have done well, are the ones who've been in Parliament before, like Honorable Wamalwa. Those ones who's been in Parliament before and are cabinet secretaries.
They know how to maneuver the politics.
They have a very easy time. They know how politics work. They know how to answer things quickly. They know how to satisfy members of Parliament. They even come themselves personally. But the technocrats will prefer to send a permanent secretary or send a CAS, of which most of the CAS were politicians. And that has really helped.
Why would they be afraid to present themselves before Parliament?
You know, Parliament, if you fight with Parliament, they can easily agree to impeach you. And somebody may just rough you off badly just from the beginning. And by the end of that session, you have a petition against you.
I see. So it is clear then that politics then are played on the floor of the House more often than not. So does it then usurp the legislative role of Parliament, this political play?
Legislative, you see, legislation is made by politicians, and the Parliament is run by politicians. So you expect politics to play throughout.
But does it override the role of which Parliament is supposed to be playing?
The role of Parliament
representation,
is
oversight,
legislation.
Oversight, legislation. At times, not all the times, but at times, we overdo it, or the politics take the center stage. Remember, Parliament, members of Parliament are whipped by the interests of their political parties and the coalitions. Like, for example, the BBI. There were quite a number of things which are not right with the BBI. And the lawyers in the House, including myself, Amolo Otiende in Senate, James Orengo, and Mutula Kilonzo Junior, were able to point out certain things. And even that went into the committee. And the committee at some point were told, this is the political party position. And again, it's a game of numbers. You vote. So if you lose in the voting, if I'm unable to raise enough people to support my idea, we lose. And the majority takes the day, even if it's a wrong thing, or even if it's something which the courts will not agree with. And that's why you saw what the Honorable Amolo Otiende was trying to tell the House is what ended up coming from court. And he was now the one to go and defend, yet he never believed in it in the first place, or had given his advice, and that caused him a lot of wrath from ODM. He was removed as the vice chair of the committee and was left in the court and given threats by the likes of Junet that he will never see the door of the House again, and he's happy to be a professor and to be a practicing lawyer.
So what I'm hearing from you then is there's a lot of frustration from various, and so the political party and the political leadership, the big boys of the country, hold sway over Parliament. We can call it independent. We can call it, an independent arm of government. All those things are stories. The reality is that there is control, levels of control being pulled from elsewhere.
No. All political parties on earth whip their members in a certain direction for a certain purpose. So what the big boys, as you call them, do is to whip through the political parties. And unfortunately, political parties in Kenya are still largely individually owned. So it's like a personal proprietorship. That's why we've really, the oldest party is KANU, and followed by Ford Kenya. And then now ODM and the Wiper, they were born at the same time. ODM Kenya just
NARC
split.
before them.
Then there's NARC, and NARC has no members in the... So you remember NARC formed government.
Yes.
It has no member in the House. PNU formed government. It has no member in the House. At least KANU has some members, Ford Kenya, ODM and the like. So we don't have the history of all strong parties, which are run independently of the proprietors. You see, that's why we were looking for political parties funding, so that you build political parties as institutions. But now a political party is whipped, and once it is whipped, you have to vote in that direction. If you don't vote in that direction, you are de-whipped. Like Omolo Otiende. If you differ, you are kicked out of the committee, and thus the work of the House takes place. Or at times, if you disagree on the floor of the House and you're out of order, you are chased away. Like sometimes there is fighting. You saw the Honorable Mbandi be chased away after a few punches here and there, and he was not apologizing, and it was becoming, after that we were taken to some disciplinary committee for a hearing to take place there. So I want to say the Parliament is independent by law. There's an element of capture by the bigger parties or the way the parties are moved. But finally, you vote. You vote with your conscience.
Nothing.
Do you
like
really
that.
vote? I'm sorry, Mweshimiwa.
Or
You
abstain.
vote. In theory, you vote with your conscience, but I think that we are replete with examples of people who even sat in this very chair who have said that Parliament has been captured. That even when you vote, it is as a result of influence coming from the powers that be. Is that an imaginary thought, an imaginary belief, or is it actually something that is going on?
What happens, some people have been very independent on what they believe in. And that's why you've seen, despite the whipping, somebody votes in the opposite or abstains from voting. But it is always good to make decision in one way or another, whether right or wrong. Of course, I have indicated what forces a certain way of doing it is a political party whipping. And I'll give you a good example. The first time in the BBI, we lost to UDA. The first vote was lost. So what happened is members were looked for from wherever they were. And later on, that matter was recommitted and voted for again. So the original position was changed. So the element of freedom I get in it is that you are able to rally your numbers, to whip your numbers, to win or in a certain position. Now, when you are able to, when you are unable to win a first round, you find people from the other side changing their mind and joining this other side, especially the independents and the people from smaller parties. They are now looked for. And you find an independent person who was voting with UDA has now moved.
What does whipping actually involve?
It's a party whip.
I just want to understand the details. It's a word. No.
Uko wapi?
The reason why I'm asking
Mbona hujaingia kwa boom?
the reason why I'm
Kwa ulikuwa umekwenda wapi?
I get that. But the reason why I'm asking is because of the numerous nefarious rumors that I've heard emanating that this decision making and the changing of minds has very little to do with whipping and more to do with persuasion.
Sometimes of the monetary nature.
That variety is the one I had in mind when I was speaking. Yes. So it is a rumor that one hears of. I'm not asking you to confirm or to confound it. I'm simply saying that when there's a constant talk about a parliament that is captive to the executive, and yet, arguably, it is perhaps the most educated, most well-informed parliament this country has ever had, if you just look at the individuals, and then you speak of the independence, then I'm a bit confused. Because independence means I would see a large number of people coming out and voicing, meaning there'd be evidence that they don't agree with certain things. One doesn't see that.
And even swaying the position of the party,
But yes,
of their party.
one doesn't see that. And when it comes to budgeting, and we say, but folks, this budget that you guys have passed, you're a budget-making parliament, surely. What is it that you've considered for the people in this country who fall below what you may call even the minimum wage bracket? And we're told, we reduce the price of bread. Now, you see, at that point, as a simple Mwananchi, I realize they've missed the point here. Bread isn't a staple food in this country. Ugali is. So what do you do to reduce the price of maize meal? I'm giving that as an example. Now, there are those who will again argue that that is battering the members of parliament. Actually, no. It's just presenting issues that we see and asking for a rational understanding of it.
Let me take you back. It's a challenge I've given a lot of people. Once in a while, like the time there was the sugar issues, I heard that money exchanged hands and some people were actually taken to the disciplinary committee to explain where the money came from. And I would imagine that was money from outside the house, maybe from businessmen. And that investigation went on and I never really got. And I'm sure a lot of members can confirm to you. President Uhuru Kenyatta is not the sort of person to buy the house. If you expect him to buy you may get into a rude shock. What I've seen happening currently is people be removed. If you disagree with the position of the party, you know how many have gone home. You know how many used to chair. And you know those chairs have a lot of privileges and there is a small, slightly higher salary, being house leadership, being in a panel or speaker, which you are put there by your political party. So the day you don't vote with your political party or you disagree, and you are the chairman or the vice chairman, like now, Omolo Otiende, was never taken back even after he has made peace. And for the reason he was removed, he wasn't given any money by Raila Odinga, his party leader, he was not given money to change his position and support BBI. Even though he was whipped out and told, now you are no longer the vice chair of the Committee of Justice.
What are you saying? Are you saying that there is no money that changes hands in Parliament?
Even if it happens, it must be done very secretly. And some characters like us may never
Dan Maanzo,
get to see it.
Before you joined Parliament, you had heard these rumors.
Yes.
You know that there is money that changes hands in Parliament to sway parliamentarians a certain way. You've been an MP for 2 terms now.
Yes.
In the pot. Are you saying you've never had it next to you?
I have seen something on the floor of the house one time. Moses Kuria came in with 100,000 and an envelope and he removed it and showed there and said, this is the money which was being paid the other side. So the question was, of course, he was told to substantiate he was unable and he was chased out of the house. It became a disciplinary issue. But really, if it was being given on the other side,
you're lawyering.
Why did he come with it? He wasn't on that side.
You are lawyering.
And he crossed and received.
I think he's already answered our question. We understand.
No, I don't.
I actually do.
I don't. I want an answer because are you saying that to the best of your knowledge, with utmost honesty,
yes,
you have not come across any information that there is any bribery that goes on in Parliament?
I haven't seen a bribery, but I've heard of it. You remember there was a lady in a lot of trouble, told to be giving money
in the restroom.
Ladies in the restroom.
Yes.
And some people came and said, I've received 10,000 from the restroom. You see that person and it was a sugar issue. Again, which was touching people outside the house, businessmen who work with some people in government. Because the sugar business, trust me, does not belong purely to Waindi. I have never seen those Waindis myself. I fought that matter throughout. I fought Kanini Keka throughout, who was chairing that sugar thing. And I'll hear there is money and I will chase to see it.
It's businessmen.
Yes, businessmen.
And the Waindi is just a factor. There are many players. But let me ask you this question.
So I really followed myself that time. And Kanini Keka, I bothered him so much. I told him, you have been given money. And I never saw any money in that sugar. But I'm told a lot of money in millions.
What I find interesting, you make laws.
Yes.
The US that we keep referring to
yes.
has something they refer to as lobbying.
Yes, sir.
So essentially, you legitimize this process that we are arguing about.
I was there recently, actually, 2 weeks ago. I was in Washington, D.C., and we met, that issue came up
Yes.
at the International Law Institute, where we were comparing notes on the systems. And this answer you are given by members who sit there. There is always a campaign team
Yes.
for every member.
Yes.
And that campaign team is monitored, and that account is opened and closed, and they really monitor it. So what they do is they are lobby with a member in the house. The money is paid by those businessmen to his campaign team
Yes.
for his re-election.
Yes.
And then when it is paid there, it is managed professionally.
Yes.
They open that account and close it. They buy campaign materials, they pay for advertisements, and bring you back. The corporations which had a problem in the house,
Yes.
bring you back to the house.
Yes.
This is what they told us when we met them in Washington last week.
How is it any different from situation we've had in this country where you are told there was money intended
In
for
the-
a
in the
huge
toilet.
project, and yet you are told when you look at the procurement process, towels, tiles, and you realize, but these materials are not very useful in the building of something like a dam. So how do you connect the two? So all I'm saying is, if we know that this is the way that things work, why not give it a legal framework within which to make it, to operationalize it? Or is it because we think we can get away with the things
The
we
truth
do?
of the matter is, a thing of that nature will be corruption. And in some countries, actually, there is an allowed level of corruption that you can pay more.
In
and
some countries, sir,
Allowed.
you speak of other countries.
Legally recognized.
You know, in Kenya, you call it illegal, but it is being practiced without the law catching up with it. I don't think you will legitimize buying of members of parliament. What I've seen more in Kenya is, in at least the last 2 times I've been there, you know, I've been in opposition. I haven't really been in government to be lobbied. If there are people who will be bought, if there are any people who will be bought, probably will be people in the smaller parties to shift alliance, and it will be people in the independent. But somebody who is very well known that you are in opposition, like myself or Amolo Otiende, really, will you really buy Amolo Otiende to vote? When he gave his reasons why he was rejected or why he wanted something rectified in BBI at that time, he gave legal position and even wrote a document. But when that document was seen, it was told this is very bad for against us, and he was removed from a committee. Of course, it's painful to be removed from that committee as a vice chair, and then threatened that next time you will not get the political party certificate. I think that's the sort of whipping
That you're talking about.
that we're talking about, because you know, if you come from that region and you don't have the political party ticket, you know where your destiny is. I think that is a sufficient threat. But the good thing with that member and his counterpart, James Orengo said, you know what? I've been in this house for many years. Take the house leadership away from me. He said, he told us, take it. Of course, Nombo took it. But for Otiende, because he's younger, he was really laying
That
down.
is new. Daniel Maanzo, thank you very much for joining us in Kenya's biggest conversation. Come again soon. Let's keep talking about this as the parliament gets busy, as politics hots up. We'll be inviting you again. He is the MP for Makueni constituency. We continue the conversation into the next hour, but we want to say goodbye to the audience that's been watching us on TV on KTN Home. Switch over to SpiceFM or just tune in to the conversation on YouTube and Facebook. SpiceFM KE.